Welcome to another episode of the Better Than I Found It podcast. I'm Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. My guest today is Austin Smotherman, who's a member of the Korn Ferry Tour. Now, in the past year, I think I've interviewed 6 Korn Ferry members, but Austin is in the most unique position of any of those, currently on the bubble in his race to earning his PGA Tour card. At the time of this interview, and with only 2 tournaments remaining in the regular season, he stood at number 25 on the list, and as we all know, the top 25 earn their PGA Tour card for the subsequent year. As you'll hear, Austin's not nervous or worried about this opportunity. He's actually embracing it, and I love it. Austin's not only a fierce competitor, but is really one of the nicest guys in pro golf. I think he's proof you can be both. In the interview, we also discuss his grandfather's influence and how dramatic that has been on his golf. We talk about his time at SMU and his journey to this point in pro golf. Thanks again for joining me. I know you'll love hearing from Austin. I'd like to welcome former SMU Mustang golfer and current Korn Ferry Tour member Austin Smotherman to the Better Than I Found It podcast. Hey, Austin, thanks so much for taking the time to come and talk today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Coach.
Absolutely.
Hope you're doing all right.
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, it's middle of the summer, lots of recruiting. It's probably not as exciting as what you've got going on right now because I know you're at a very, awesome stage of life as a professional golfer. So I have a lot I want to talk about today, but specifically we're going to talk about the race to the 25 to get your PGA Tour card. So
well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I bet you've been looking forward to this your whole life as a golfer, right?
No doubt. Kind of all culminates in these next couple of weeks, which brings a lot of good stories about, and also just an opportunity to kind of learn a lot about myself as well, and push forward and see what happens.
Well, before we get into that story, and I want to talk about the time that I actually saw you for the first time, but
a while ago, that's for sure.
Oh, it has been a while ago. I was young. Who knows? But I do know this, that to be a competitive golfer, you have to have a certain selfish nature about you. You have to have some of that because you've got to go out and work and do it for yourself. And you got to be really competitive. And I know you're both of those, but you're also one of the nicest guys I've ever met. So it's like, I'm going to have you kind of balance that for me. How does that work?
It's definitely something that, if I could maybe add a little bit more of that kind of fire, kind of that killer instinct, maybe would serve me better on the course and maybe in some certain scenarios and whatnot. But you know what? I think just the way that I was raised and having parents that kind of communicated so much about etiquette and growing up part of the First Tee program in Greater Sacramento area, which is, I'm from Northern California originally before I went to SMU and currently live in Dallas. But who you are as a person, I mean, is way more important than who you are as a golfer, and all that kind of falls in line after that. I mean, you take care of that, and you know what, you're at peace on the golf course, and you know what, you probably play better golf as a result. And there's definitely scenarios that bring out that killer instinct, no doubt. So,
well, you are a competitor. I can see that, but I also want you to know it's very obvious to people as they just see how you treat people. And I noticed it when in college, when you played poorly, you were the same guy. So I always appreciated that. But anyway, having said that, that's your personality. You're authentic to it. I love it. So, but the first time I saw you was at Egypt Valley in 2010 in Michigan at the U.S. Junior. But you and I were talking earlier, and I actually saw you before then, but you didn't make an impression upon me. The U.S. Open the year before. Talk about that first experience in national junior competition.
Yeah. So, growing up, wanting to obviously play on the bigger stage, and kind of had made that commitment when I was 14, 15 or so. I had played a bunch of sports growing up, and then kind of had at that age committed to really just playing golf, which mainly because as a basketball player, I wasn't getting as much time, and I kind of enjoyed that individual side of what golf was, and being outside as well was a big part of it. But qualified for that. I think it was the 2009 U.S. Junior, the year before at Trump Bedminster in New Jersey, and getting thrust onto the national stage, getting paired with the number 1 ranked junior golfer in the country at the time, and Jordan Spieth for the stroke play rounds. pretty intimidating if you think about it. I mean, I got every college coach following the group to not watch me. My mom doesn't know a single thing about college recruiting, coming from a small town in Northern California, and his parents opened up their arms and said to my mom, "Oh yeah," introduced her to a couple coaches, and she was like, "Whoa, like this could be the real deal. Like we could actually go to college and play the sport, and this is what it consists of." And here we are in that first round playing with Spieth. Actually, I remember him, I mean, vividly. I mean, hitting it in the 2 fairway bunkers off of 1 and 2, and stuffing these fairway bunker shots like 6 feet. He's 200 through 2. I'm hitting, striping down the middle, hitting the green, 2 putting for par, and I'm down by 2 through the first 2 holes to this guy. I'm like, how good is he? Is this going to last for 36 holes? This is incredible.
Well, I actually have something in common with you there. When I played my first national tournament, it was the Junior Orange Bowl over Christmas.
Yeah, I played that event as well.
Exactly. Well, I was paired with Willie Wood, who was the #1 junior player in the country as well at the time. And I was scared to death. I remember that. Were the nerves going pretty good?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, it shows in my finish. One of the scorecards that I try to wash out of my mind. I think I finished double, triple, double, par to shoot 2 over par. After having it going, beating Jordan through the first 15.
Aren't you glad I brought it up?
Yeah, not that I remember it or anything. But yeah, that was, I shot like 2 over par that first day, and then had to kind of grind to make it, even have a chance to make match play that year, which Jordan easily breezed to #1 seed. And then, like you mentioned earlier, you saw me kind of just under the radar in the 8-for-1 playoff the next morning, trying to get into the 64 spot to then play the #1 seed, which of course is Jordan. And we all know how that goes that year. He runs through match play and gets his first US junior. So,
well, I was recruiting Jordan pretty heavily in those days when I was at Oklahoma State, and I remember his victory there, and I thought, boy, he's going to win at least one more of these. But the next year in 2010 at Egypt Valley in Michigan, you qualified again.
I did.
And all of us coaches remember one thing that happened that week, and that was Robbie Shelton, this little old boy from Wilmer, Alabama.
Right.
He beat Jordan Spieth in match play in the first round, and it was kind of a shock to all of us. But one other thing that I have an image of is you that week. You kind of burst onto the scene. You made match play, and you look good.
Yeah, I felt good. That was kind of, that's crazy what a year will do. I mean, especially at those ages, 14, 15, 16, I was playing on my high school team, playing some county, kind of some city events in the area in Sacramento. And arrived that week, I think just kind of with a little bit more experience under my belt. I've, not a ton, but enough to play well. I had a really cool local caddy that week, and we were kind of just vibing off each other, and made match play, lost first round to Cody Provo of Clemson, who I'm not sure what he's doing now. I know I see his younger brother in some qualifiers here and there and whatnot, but
Cody's coaching.
He's coaching.
He is coaching.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. I remember him I think he dominated. It was like 4-3 victory for him. And, but kind of lit that fire to kind of go back home and, open my eyes to what that scene is like and want to get back to it, which, kind of like the way my whole professional career, college career has gone. I mean, my junior career, if I look back on it, I haven't even thought about this till just now, kind of how slow those steps happen, that, it's kind of just such a slow progression that it's not, it takes 10 years for you to be able to look back on it and see, wow, like I was slowly progressing, moving forward the entire time, every 6 months, every year, but it didn't feel like that much at the time. And it's kind of interesting. It's just so interesting to me because, the next year I qualified for the US Junior again, which, when I was 14, 15, trying to qualify the first time, if you told me I was going to play in 3 in a row, I would have thought that was, craziness. And here I am the next year, win my first match over a buddy of mine from the University of Oregon later on. And then in my second match, have kind of an epic battle with Bo Hostler at Gold Mountain and Bremerton in the state of Washington. And back and forth match all day. Him making putts, I make a bogey out of the water on a par 3, playing a shot inside the water, taking my shoes off to have a hole, and then he makes birdie on 17 to go 1 up, and after 18 that week was a drivable par 4, where of course he hits his 4-iron down the middle. He's going to have a wedge shot. I'd pump driver near the green and have to stand up there on the green and watch him basically nearly hole his wedge shot to like 8 feet. I'm like, all right, I have to make this to force extra holes and, slide it by 6 feet. So he makes his 8-footer. I don't even have a chance to make it and have some drama. But well, yeah, and just to go on, just how crazy interconnected all those guys are. I mean, all these guys I play with U.S. juniors and junior golf with, you see them on the PGA Tour, you see them through Q schools. I mean, it's just such a cool fraternity to be a part of, that kind of higher level, golf.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned was progression. Everyone's progressing, and you look back on it 10 years later and realize, man, I was getting better all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's obviously, I'm getting better all the time with so many poor rounds mixed in between. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm seeing myself shoot one shot better every single round and I'm shooting, 18 by the end of it. Well, it's pretty cool to look back on it, and definitely you've been a big part of it, and I appreciate everything you've said. And I know you recruited me a little bit, and still remember the other story. Remember me calling you on Peter Uehleine's USAM victory?
I do remember that. Absolutely.
I mean, I was sitting at my desk in my room, and I remember you on the other line. I was like, did he really just take my call? And he's literally celebrating the US Amateur victory right now. This is incredible. Who is this coach? What's going on?
Well, I was pretty much on top of the world at that point. So was Peter too. And he's still playing pro golf as well. So, and
I get to see him. I mean, we warm up on the range. I mean, week in and week out nowadays. I mean, he's been kind of bouncing back and forth between the big tour and here. I know he had success in Europe, but yeah, pretty cool. I mean, I like following my career, but it's pretty cool as a coach on your end, getting to follow so many careers just take off. You don't know what direction they're going to go in.
No, and you're one of those people that I competed against as a coach, against you in college, but I've been able to keep a relationship with. But I would say this: Peter was a 2-time AJGA Player of the Year. It doesn't happen very often. A guy who's a 2-time National Junior Player of the Year on the AJGA Tour. You never played in an AJGA event. Your only national tournaments were 3 U.S. juniors. Talk about why that happened, because your parents were a big part of that.
They were. Yeah, I mean, my dad and I kind of had these conversations. We would talk about it, and of course, I wanted to go play these events. I mean, I'd see other buddies. I'd learn about it. I'd read about it online. I'd see all these guys playing these big time events, and getting these points, going to play these unbelievable courses. But my dad kind of just kept me grounded. You know what, son? We can't necessarily do that right now. You know what? You take care of what you got to do here in my little small town of Loomis, because it's not like I'm the only golfer. If I'm not the best golfer in my little small town, there's no reason I should be really going to these AJGA events yet. And so take care of business there. That was some motivation to work hard, move forward. Once I kind of accomplished that, and I had now kind of my Sacramento County, kind of my Northern California region, and then you got California state golf, which is really competitive, because once you bring in Southern California, you have 10x the number of players as we do in Northern California, especially good players and good high school players, and those players that are playing in those AJGA events that are going to play at Cal State Junior, are going to play the high school state championships. And so that was kind of my route. And I mean, I embraced it, and you know what, I wouldn't change it for the world. So wasn't going to be a necessity to go play those events. I mean, who knows with my kids one day, if they want to play golf, if that's how it's going to be. But that was kind of my process.
Well, I would say that I would give your dad high marks on that one. For one, it's a lot better to win the Sacramento City Championship and sleep on a lead than it is to finish 35th in some AJGA event somewhere. I'm not downplaying an AJGA event. It's just there's value.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. I mean, going back, just in our area growing up, kind of a couple of names that I played against. So me and Cameron Champ, he's a little bit younger, but he's from Sacramento, and literally would play Wednesday afternoon 9-hole matches called Little Linkers at Hagen Oaks Golf Course on the arcade side, the kind of the smaller muni, on Wednesday afternoons after school when we were 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And here we are. He's a multiple PGA Tour. He's won 3 times on the PGA Tour. Went to Texas A&M. I went to SMU. We both ended up in Texas somehow, which, the amount of rivalry and back and forth we had in junior golf, no doubt kind of pushed us to be better. And
well, now I know why
we had some epic kind of playoffs, because he was always playing up an age group and everything, because he was a bomber back then as well.
I was gonna say, that's how you hit it pretty far for a guy your size. That's where you got it right there. You had to try to outdrive Cameron.
No doubt. I mean, so growing up, I didn't have a ton of instruction either on top of all that. But one thing I did know was I was a pretty good baseball player. And so my baseball swing would definitely seep into kind of my summer golf swing, which strong right hand, get underneath it, swing it out to the right. And because I was hitting these just sling and draws, which is something I literally still fight my tendencies against today, is developed back then. I mean, but it allowed me to hit the ball further, compete, a little bit, better with another, maybe an older age group or whatnot, just because of the distance aspect, which is what everybody's talking about nowadays. But yeah, just kind of just crazy how all those things play a part. And like I said, I wouldn't change a single part of it. So
No, you shouldn't. I mean, it's gotten you to where you are today, and as we're going to talk about in a little bit, you're very close to a goal you've had your whole life. But I want to talk about somebody that's very, very important, and it's been documented. There's been stories written about it, and that is your grandfather, Bill Acquistapaci, which in Italian means of the peace. That's something you taught me earlier. I did not know.
yeah.
Tell me about how Grandpa Bill and what that's meant to you.
Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty cool. The PGA wanted to do an article on kind of me and my season and whatnot, and we just started talking, and his name comes up so many times. I mean, and they kind of started asking me a little bit more about him, and I kind of got to tell that story. But yeah, I mean, my grandpa, who I have a kind of an odd nickname for him. I call him Boshy or Bosch. I don't know why, but somehow, so I'm just gonna call him Bosch. But yeah, 2-3 years old, he was cutting down old clubs with his, putting on electrical tape and kind of duct tape as the grip, and those were my first clubs. Swinging in the front yard, getting me to play out there. I play in his little men's league once I was kind of 9, 10, 11 years old. First tee time off Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So my summers I'd go play golf with him like that, with guys who were obviously a lot older than me. But he's been a part of this whole process. And my grandfather on my dad's side was kind of a very philosophical kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was always, challenged me on the mental side of things and making me compete. And they had a little pond on my grandparents' property, and he would challenge me to hit. We had little floating golf balls. He bought me like 100 floating golf balls, but every one that I lost, I owed him $1. So if I have to know where they were going, I couldn't just hit them out into the woods, and they were all numbered and whatnot. So I'd hit them into the pond, or into a net, or we'd set up like a floating bucket or whatnot. And then I'd have to go get in the canoe, go out there, gather them up, come back. And so it was kind of that, you can't rush your practice. All these things that you talk about as a pro now that I still try and emulate, were all kind of a part of my childhood.
When I was a young boy, my dad was a club professional, and he had range balls that cost him 33 cents a piece when he bought them. And so if he rented out 10 buckets of balls in a day, that was 300 balls. I had to bring back 300 at the end of the day, or else.
I know, that's the scary part.
Oh yeah. So you learned the same lesson I learned way back when.
So cool.
You obviously had great influences that kind of kept you motivated and excited about the game, which is great. They were probably hoping one day you'd play professional golf, and I know you probably had that dream. But there's go ahead.
I think the professional golf idea wasn't really at the top of their mind. I think it was still mainly their focus was kind of me having an opportunity to go get an education and whatnot. And the fact that I got to leave California, which, I mean, just anywhere, I guess kind of just get out of my own kind of region and just go get some different experiences, which I'll go back to kind of traveling for the first time with my mom to these US junior events in different parts of the country that I would have never gone to otherwise. I mean, to go see what New Jersey was like, Michigan, and then Washington, as a 15, 16, 17-year-old. I mean, it's eye-opening. It's and you kind of want to go see what else is out there. And it's just, that's another kind of level of motivation, which I've been fortunate enough to travel internationally now and play in South America. Hopefully one day all over the world.
That's great. Well, so Josh Gregory recruited you to SMU. So Sacramento to Dallas, that's a little bit of a culture shock.
Definitely a big time culture shock, which fortunately, coming from kind of a smaller area, going to a school like SMU, being kind of a smaller student body, only about 7,000 students, was kind of helped me bridge that gap. Because it wasn't like I was thrown into a school of 30,000 students and could really get lost. You know, kind of got to form some good smaller relationships, have some small community groups and whatnot, along with the golf team. That kind of gave me that sense of small town feel in just the giant metropolis of DFW.
That is a big area, but the campus is small and it's a beautiful campus. So
it is. I mean, I enjoyed every bit of it. I mean, getting to show up for game days and go down the boulevard, along with kind of I mean, growing up as well in California, I played a bunch of golf with Bryson DeChambeau, who we ended up being teammates together and came in the freshman class together in 2012. Him being from Central California, kind of just enough north to be able to play our NorCal junior stuff and not Southern California. So we got to see each other a lot more often than some others. But yeah, I mean, I remember showing up to a junior event, I don't know, 13, 14 years old. And Bryson's over there changing the weights on the bottom of his putter, calibrating them to the speed of the greens. And it's like 8 o'clock. We got like a 9 o'clock shotgun start. And I'm like, what is going on? What is this guy doing? I'm just over here just hitting putts, like, you know, just ready to go do what I do. And he's over here just being the scientist that he is. And clearly 5 years later, we ended up going to college together. And I see that whole work ethic firsthand. And there's, you know, never really a doubt in my mind after seeing him week in and week out do what he does, and that he'd be a top 10 player in the world for a long time.
Oh, I think there's no doubt about it. What's impressed me more than anything with him is he does it his own way, and he's not afraid of the criticism that comes with that.
No, and that's one thing that I'm currently kind of working on and always refining, I think, is being a part of that, and some comparison, you know, comparing myself with him and just the way that he does it, you know, if that's the way I should be doing it, which everybody does it their own way. And I feel like you got to put the right glasses on to kind of have the perspective to see what you do best. I mean, Bryson figured out what works best for him, and that's why he's doing it. You know, it might not be the best way, but if I were to go down his route and try and do everything he's doing, it would be just that. I'd be trying to do somebody else's thing, and it's when it really produced the same kind of output. So figuring out who I am, figuring out what works best for me is an ever changing kind of. It's part of life. I mean, that's life. That's living life right there. So, well, it's crazy.
You know, he's doing it his own way, but you've done exactly the same thing your own way. But when you got to SMU, within a year or so, you started working with Cameron McCormick. And SMU had a program for physical training. So can you talk about both of those influences on your game that got you to the professional golf? Yeah,
so I came to school without a whole lot of instruction growing up, other than seeing my swing on video a couple times, and a coach in the area telling me that, you know, I'm really into out. I have a strong right hand grip. Of course, I'm going to hit draws. And if I'm ever overdrawn, it to feel like I'm hitting a pull cut. And I literally play with that same swing feel, that concise, until my sophomore year of college, which is pretty rare, I would say, for a lot of players going to play Division I golf. And those are all things that I was able to communicate with Cameron. And he was able to coach me in a way that allowed me that same ownership of my game, which I think was what allowed me to play such good golf throughout those junior years and to be able to earn a college scholarship. Was, you know, you show up for round one and you might be hitting it some way that you don't normally hit it. Well, you better figure out how to go play and get it around that day. There's no one to really turn to. You gotta go shoot a score, get it around, figure it out later if you want, but you don't really have an option. And that kind of self-belief, self-confidence, when you do execute those kinds of things, are so much greater than feeling like you're executing somebody else's plan.
Right.
And so with Cameron, I mean, his wealth of knowledge is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but he's been able to coach me in a way in the last, I guess, 8 years now, that have been able to maintain my kind of ownership and confidence in my game, to be able to go out there and still compete and not be really looking for an answer. Yes, I can, you know, go back and forth with him and communicate about it. But again, it all comes down to communication, and me being able to vocalize what I'm feeling, what's going on, what's off and whatnot, and kind of having that interest and kind of that internal perspective on my game and what's going on. But that's where I think, like, growing up with instruction, the ability to kind of communicate those things definitely outweigh any kind of instruction that would possibly hinder that, where you're trying to just, kind of a cookie cutter instruction, you're going to go do something. I think that's almost worse than just figuring out how to do it your own way. I know I'm kind of going off on
No,
going a roundabout way right now, but
I get what you're saying. And
yeah,
Cameron has allowed you to still be Austin Smotherman,
right.
while giving you a little more than you had growing up.
Definitely. And that's, yeah, I guess when I'm hindsight, I mean, to kind of, I guess, try and consolidate it, but no instruction is better than bad instruction, and good instruction can be that much better if you as a player are able to vocalize and communicate. And if there's a miscommunication, I mean, you have to be able to catch it and be able to give yourself that time during practice or whatnot to figure out what's going on. And if you can communicate to your coach, he can help you that much more than if you weren't able to kind of recognize those things.
That's very well said.
I think that's what I was shooting for right there.
You got it this time. So Cameron's been with you for 8 years now. That's great. I'm sure you guys are going to continue that good work. But let's talk about, you got out of SMU after a great career, played with a lot of guys on the team, Bryson, Harry Higgs, Sam Fedone. You had some guys on the team that were going to be pro golfers.
Yeah.
And that's obviously where you were headed. And so you turned pro, I guess, in 2016?
Yep. So I kind of fast forwarded all of my finals my senior year, didn't have a ton of hours left my second semester senior year. So I was able to take all my finals a week early to be able to have the ability to travel to Canada, to go up to Vancouver area to compete in the first Q school that would be available, which would be PGA Tour Canada, Mackenzie Tour, that week after I graduated. And in doing so, might not have been the perfect decision, but definitely learned a lot. I did not get status that way. Top 40 in ties, earned status. I think I finished like 58th or something. I mean, didn't play spectacular. But again, I mean, that whole week prior, I wasn't really practicing. I was trying to take finals. I was studying, doing all that, which, you would think would probably lead to, less time on the golf course. But yeah, so turned professional in 2016 after having no status, and just kind of hopped right on the Adams Tour at the time. Knew I was going to do some Korn Ferry Tour Mondays, and signed up for Q school that would be starting later that fall.
That's great. Well, you spent a couple of years on at least 1 year on the the Latin American tour as well.
Yep, I did. So yeah, that first summer signing up for Q school, I had to go through pre-qualifying still. So I went through pre-qualifying, first stage and second stage of qualifying, shooting 14 under par at every single site.
Oh wow!
So I was playing some good golf that summer. Played well, and I played well on some Mondays, shooting 6 under and whatnot. But that doesn't really get it done at some of those the Midwest qualifiers. But had some good finishes, some Adams Tour events, and then I go through Q school shooting those scores. And at second stage, I was living in downtown Dallas at the time, playing second stage at TPC Craig Ranch up in McKinney, so about a 45-minute drive. And I was first off of the first tee, final round, bogey free 5 under, just missing a 30-footer free goal on 18 to finish that morning in 8th place. Top 19 in ties, get status to go to final stage, be on the web.com now, Korn Ferry Tour. And I drive home 45 minutes, and I slowly watch my name slide down that leaderboard. I was first one to post, and conditions were perfect. Course was playing pretty easy. Ended up sliding all the way back to T21, missing status by 2 people, 1 shot, and sitting on my couch, trying not to refresh every 5 seconds, and at least maybe make it a minute occasionally. But yeah, that was kind of a shock to the system. I mean, I thought I did enough to get it done and move forward. And obviously shooting scores like that, I mean, what else can you expect? But it kind of led me to that next journey, like you said, playing in South America, which in January, this was November, January was PGA Tour Latin America Q school. Went to Florida, top 12 in ties, earned status, finished tied for 12th. That same week, Harry Higgs and I were rooming together. He finished 7th. We got status. We were getting ready. We're going to be going down to Guatemala in like a month and a half, which is just, one of many unbelievable places I got to experience. I ended up having to play 2 seasons down in South America before graduating off that tour to the Korn Ferry.
Well, and that status you had in 2019, and so you've been on the tour since then, and we've obviously had COVID in there. We've had a longer season here for this current season you're on.
The super season of 46 counting events.
It's unbelievable. That's never going to happen again, we hope. But
I know.
But you know what? You just described a devastating day at a tour school that, it's a lot of people say, well, that's not true adversity. Well, it is in a career. It's a great amount of adversity. But I will say
it'd be like doing some sort of interview and not getting the job or something.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. But there's no question that moment in time, that experience is going to be something that's going to make you, that it's probably helped you become a PGA Tour player. I mean, on your way.
Absolutely. And we talk about kind of those small progressions that you look back on, kind of take a year or two of reflection. And the 2 seasons I played in South America were definitely that. I mean, my first season, I finished 32nd on the points list, which top 60 keep their card. So I got to come back that following year, but I was nowhere near the top 5 earning status to get to the web.com Korn Ferry Tour at the time. A couple finishes, going to some unbelievable places, spending a decent amount of money as well. But you know what? That's the drive too. I mean, you kind of, sometimes you're back up against the wall, you see what you're made of. And at the end of the year, I finished runner-up in our tour championship to kind of, cap off and kind of have a nice little payday and have the summertime to go play some other Monday qualifiers and then come back that next season. And that next season, our second event, I was lucky enough to win the Mexican Open, the 59th Mexican Open at Tijuana Country Club.
Oh, wow.
Which has a front 9 Mackenzie design and a back 9. I couldn't even tell you who designed it. 2 completely different courses, a completely different practice putting green, which is what we had on the golf course. I mean, different grass type and everything. And talking about adversity, that Wednesday before that event, I shot like 76 in the Pro-Am, was hitting balls Wednesday after the round, and my 8-iron head flies into the middle of the range. And I mean, that was the one event where maybe we were close enough to Carlsbad to get to TaylorMade or something to be able to go have a replacement or figure out something. But I mean, I teed off Thursday morning. This was Wednesday afternoon. I wasn't about to spend the next 6-7 hours trying to cross the border to go find an 8-iron. So I just said, you know what? I'm either a 3-iron or hybrid kind of guy. So I put the 3-iron in the bag. So I still had 14 clubs, but no 8-iron. And that entire week, though, it was the focuser I needed to, off of every tee box, I had to know what I was hitting. I could not get into that 165, 175 range. Unfortunately, the 10th hole was a par 3, which is a perfect 8-iron every single day. So I would rip 9 to the front pins and putt up the hill, and I would chip these little 7s to the back pins. And the final round, I hit this unbelievable little like chippy cut 7, ended up making birdie, and that final round played up. Was able to play into 18 with a 3-shot lead and just 2 putt for par.
Who needs an 8-iron anyway, right?
No, I mean, it's, just right in the middle of the bag. It's, nobody ever hits it during a round.
Well, so anyway, those are all experiences. Every golfer I've talked to in this podcast has similar experiences, maybe at a different level or back and forth, but something like that happens.
Yeah. And it all adds up to like you said, to make you kind of who you are, and you learn a little bit about yourself and how you respond to those situations.
So you get your PGA Korn Ferry Tour card, and you had some success, obviously, but I want to talk about a tournament you won this year, the Simmons Bank Open, back in May, because I remember watching it on television and thinking, man, that kid has finally won a golf tournament at that level. And, I've followed your career all along. Talk about the nerves. Talk about that week.
Oh my gosh. That week is one of those ones where you kind of just have to get out of your own way. I knew I was playing good coming into it, had some good swing feels that I was working on. And what kind of helped me, I think, get into the zone that week was shedding a little bit of perspective. So my Wednesday Pro-Am, I played 9 holes, and in the group was a 12-year-old boy playing with his dad and his grandpa. And my Wednesday pro-am wasn't to go see the course, wasn't to work on my own game. It was kind of just to be a part of this kid's nine holes. His name's Blades, and I still stay in touch with him actually because he followed me the entire week. But that day was not really about me. I mean, I was able to be about someone else, impact someone else, and he was I mean, I kept telling him, dude, you were way better than I ever was at 12 years old. I hope I'm off this tour by the time you're turning professional, because there's no way I'd have a chance. and that was kind of all I needed. I mean, it was that perspective to when you get under pressure and whatnot, you have those things that can kind of lighten the mood and you can fall back on. But I was playing good. I shot 7 under the first round that week. I think I was tied for the lead the first round. Had the solo lead after the second round. I birdied the last hole in the third round to be tied for the lead going into the final day. But one of the toughest rounds was definitely that Saturday, having one of the later tee times, which I know is a big part of professional golf, especially once you get into majors and whatnot. Any PGA Tour event, you're teeing off, twosomes late on a Sunday. You got a lot of time to kill and a lot of extra thoughts that can kind of sneak in there. So it was like a 1 o'clock tee off, and that morning, tough to get some food down. Nerves were definitely there. Energy levels were fine, so I wasn't too worried about it. I was just gonna kind of snack on the course and not try and get so bogged down with trying to force a big meal on me. But did what I had to do and was able to play that Sunday round with a little bit more comfort. But our tee times were actually moved up due to weather, which I think benefited me as well. So I teed off on Sunday at 9 a.m. as compared to kind of the usual 1 o'clock tee time would be. And we had 2 weather delays during that final round. First one, I had to mark my ball in a fairway bunker on number 6 and have to come back and replace it an hour and a half later and hit this 7-iron to front left pin with water left. And basically just, whatever I could do to keep it on the front right edge and make 4 and move on. Well, I ended up playing 3 holes and we get called off the course for 3 hours. So I get to sit in the clubhouse, tied for the lead at the time for another 3 hours, and on 8 green with like a 30-footer to still putt. But I mean, I know I'm rambling on right now, but I mean, that day.
Well, that was a big moment in your life. Feel free to ramble.
Yeah, I know, man. I think I learned a lot about myself that day too. The nerves were there, but I think it was kind of one of those events that had a few more people following. And for me, I mean, getting to play, I think the biggest change between kind of junior college golf, maybe high level college golf, and especially playing national championships, but professional golf at the Korn Ferry level, getting some fans out there and having a decent number of people follow you and for me, that kind of refocuser, that entertaining, look, I'm gonna go show these people what I can do. And it kind of ups my level of play versus kind of just playing at home with maybe just a foursome or whatnot. But
sure. But I mean, if you think about it, that dream you had of playing the PGA Tour, playing professional golf or something, you want these nerves, you want them to you got to have them.
You got to have them. And yeah, that's how you get the best out of yourself too. I mean, but that final round, I actually only saw one leaderboard coming down the stretch and thought I had a 1-shot lead playing the 18th hole. Little did I know I had a 3-shot lead. And I thought par was going to be a 1-shot win. And I had one of my best drives of the week on 18. Could have gone for the par 5. Absolutely not, with water all left. And just a little chippy 6-iron down there to like a 80-yard wedge shot that I hit to 20 feet short and let everybody else putt out and lag my putt down there to 6 inches past the hole, mark it, let them tap out and kind of soak up the moment. And gosh, man, I'll never forget that.
Oh, you shouldn't forget that. In fact, you probably draw upon it later as you have that same feeling on a PGA Tour event. But
yeah,
so that we'll talk about nerves. So this is what I wanted to kind of finally get to here, and that is, I've on this podcast, I've talked to major champions, current PGA Tour players that are doing great, former players, whatever. But you're the first bubble guy that I've talked to. You're the first guy I've interviewed who's on the bubble on the race to 25 to get your PGA Tour card. So
Yep.
there are some nerves right now. This is great.
I know, but and like you said earlier, if someone told me the start of the season we're going to play 46 events and through 44 of them, you're going to be in the 25th hole, and you know what? I would say, give it to me. And
Okay.
that's what I keep telling everybody, and I'm gonna tell you guys right here is that, you know what? I mean, I've worked my whole career to be able to handle this moment. So why should I be that much more nervous? I'm going to be the same nervous I was winning a golf tournament or teeing it up when I was 15, 16 on the first hole. Um, it just might mean a little bit more at the end of the day, but that's something that I'm going to have to kind of work on keeping it out of my mind. And you know what? I have golf shots to execute. And I think one of the biggest benefits with that is having an unbelievable caddy by my side that can be that consistent kind of level-headed guy when I'm going to have everything going on around me. And that's where that real value kind of comes in, and having that relationship and be able to build on it.
You have 2 more regular season events, Utah and Omaha, and then you're going to play the 3 final series events. So you have 5 events essentially. You know, I read somewhere on the internet where you said you're embracing this opportunity. You didn't call it a challenge, you said opportunity. So talk about that, because I love that frame of mind.
Well, yeah, I love the word opportunity too. I when I'm playing pro-ams and whatnot, and you know, an amateur hits a shot in a tough spot, you know, I always say, oh, it's an opportunity for greatness.
Mm-hmm.
You never know when the next hot streak or crazy shot might happen, and it's all about being ready for those opportunities. And challenges are those opportunities, but you know what? If it's a little uncomfortable, it's probably a good thing. That's where any kind of progress would happen. And yeah, I mean, this is one of the cool. I mean, again, perspective wise, I know I say it a lot, but the opportunity to play on the PGA Tour next year with having to execute through two events to play. I mean, 8 rounds of golf. It's, I mean, incredible. I mean, the fact that very few people will ever be in my position, and I'm one of those ones that can talk with you right here and kind of shed light on what it might feel like and what the prep might be, and you know, hopefully speak to you afterwards when we're celebrating a PGA Tour card.
Yeah, I want to have you back on one day when we can talk about, you know, this kind of time in your life. But, you know,
yeah,
one of the most appealing qualities to me in a human being, period, is gratitude. And all throughout this interview that we've been talking, you talk in such a gratuitous. I mean, you're absolutely thankful for all these opportunities. So that's awesome,
yeah.
first of all. And second of all, I want every one of my players, you know, at Baylor to have the same attitude. I'm thankful I'm here.
I think, yeah, that level of gratitude and is something that doesn't always come naturally. I mean, it's something that you gotta practice, you gotta work on, and you gotta give yourself the time of day to be able to express gratitude. I mean, I have a little daily athlete journal that I work on. I can't say every day because I miss some days, but majority of the days of the week. And you know, my very first line is, "What am I thankful for today?" or "What am I looking forward to?" And if I can answer that first thing in the morning and move forward with my day, you know what? I started off on the right foot, and kind of just, you know, one step to take the next.
That's great.
And
The
you know what?
Baylor
That's the way it
Marathon,
is in golf too.
we might be adding a journal just like that one. I do have my guys' journal a lot. I think it's
Yeah,
important.
I have it right. This is my
Oh,
deal
there
right
it
here.
is. The athlete journal. Excellent. I
Yeah.
love, I just love people who are thankful for opportunities that they have, and that they're thankful for the people that bring them along the path. So
No
again,
doubt.
you're embracing this opportunity that you've waited for your entire life, and you're going to go out
And
and
that
do it.
we've worked so hard to put ourselves in that position. And you know what? Sometimes opportunities or challenges or whatnot, you might not recognize them. And that's why, if you can give yourself enough time throughout the day, or, you know, a couple minutes to be able to step back and see that bigger picture, those are the things that you can kind of then build on, and not go 6 months and before you realize, oh my gosh, wow, look at all these opportunities I might have missed because I didn't take the time to just recognize them.
Mhm.
And that's like with the game of golf. I mean, 4 rounds can come and go real quick. And you know what? Afternoon tee time on Thursday with a morning round on Friday, doesn't seem like you ever can get out of that golf mode and give yourself the time to step back and be able to reflect and maybe make a change in a positive way for that next day. And that's where one of the things that Bryson told me, I called him on the practice putting green that week in Mexico before I was playing the final round. It's like, hey man, I'm nervous. You're out there on the big tour. Obviously, you've had to deal with a lot more than I have so far. But what? Just give me something. I need something. Come on, we got a big round ahead of us. And he said, learn something from every single shot today, and that's all you can do. And so that was it. That's all I focused on. I mean, hit a shot and reflect in your little bubble and move forward.
So that's great advice by Bryson. And obviously he's done that in his past. He's been hugely successful. But so
Yeah.
if you had one thing, before we finish here, if you had one thing you could tell me or tell our listeners that's been the most valuable thing to you, one moment in time, or one thing you've learned that's gotten you to this spot or that's kept you moving forward, what would that be?
I would say to be yourself. Yeah, to be able to do it your own way, and to be able to have that belief and self-confidence in it and in yourself, because that trickles down into every aspect of your life. And it might start with golf, because golf is obviously, I mean, you can't deny it is a huge part of our lives. I mean, it's really easy to tie who you are as a person with who you are as a golfer. But being able to be yourself in both aspects, I think only allows for opportunities, for more opportunities, and for you to be ready for more of those when they come your way.
All right, two other things. One, I want to ask, what do you think is the most valuable piece of advice for a 13, 14-year-old kid who wants to be where you are, play college golf and then play professional golf? I've asked this of a lot of players. So if you had one, and you said one, it may be that right there, be yourself, but is there anything else you'd have for him?
Gosh. I mean, you can't have a good enough short game. I mean, if you're going to reflect on the golf side of it, focus on that. I mean, I know we mentioned Bill Hostler earlier in the podcast, and playing with him at the finals event 2 years ago when he had to earn his PGA Tour card back, which he did. He said something that kind of stuck out to me, and we were on the range hitting some balls, and he looked over at the chipping green and there was like nobody on the chipping green. And he said, only at a Korn Ferry Tour event would you not be able to find a stall on the range, but at a PGA Tour event, you can't find a spot on the chipping green.
Wow.
And I was like, huh. I was like, that's a little different way to look at it, because here we are, we're all beating balls. I mean, if you've ever been to the Ohio State Scarlet course, it is a giant driving range. And if you can't find a stall on that range, the chipping green, which is just off to the left 50 yards, which is on a golf course that you're not going to hit a lot of greens at because it's a big boy golf course. That was kind of interesting to me, because every single week now I get to a Korn Ferry event and I look at the chipping green occasionally. I'm like, there's like 3 people and there's 90 guys on the range right now.
Question. Did you write down what Bo taught you that day in your journal? Did you write it down?
So at that point, a couple of years ago, I was not journaling as consistent as I am now. And so something that I would have at the time written down, but it's still, I got it logged up here. And I was able to share that with you guys today. I mean, I
think that's fantastic, because when I learned something like that, which was significant, that's a very significant thing. I mean, you're seeing the difference in the two tours right there.
Right. Yeah. And it's incredible. Yeah. Just how, I think being able to take those little tidbits, being there, playing with good players, trying to find some practice rounds where you can play with people better than you, or somebody that might have an aspect of the game that you want to kind of have seep into your game, and spending time around those guys. I mean, that's one thing being in Dallas has been so fortunate to me, is being around that number of players week in and week out, and having teammates as well that are professional, playing out there on the PGA Tour, and then having guys in the area that come to the kind of the DFW area to play and practice and travel out of is all pretty easy, and that's made my life a lot better.
That is good. And I think that it's interesting. I always tell the kids your college decision is a really important place, or a really important decision, because you might end up going to school where you're going to live the rest of your life, or where you're going to play professional golf or whatever. So it's a really important decision. But I'm going to ask you my listeners are going to watch for you the next couple of weeks. They're going to watch.
Looking forward to it.
Number 2, would you come back when you've had a year on the PGA Tour and we can do this again, because it's going to be a whole different set of experiences that you'll be talking about.
Absolutely, and I'll open up the whole journal for you that time.
I really can't. I'm thrilled that you journal. You know, a lot of guys that I've talked to do that, and one of them was Maverick McNeely, and that's how I connected with him when he was in college, because he found out I journaled and through his coach, and I went to him and found out that's important. It's really important that you are documenting.
I've heard the same thing, and I play and practice often with Brandon Wu, who another Stanford alum and super smart guy for a ton of reasons. And but yeah, I mean, he's another player that I'm around that does it his own way. He's not at the course every single day that I might be there, but when he is, he's efficient. He's doing what he feels like he needs to do for his game, and I'm doing what I feel like I need to do for my game. I mean, there's no judgment anywhere. There's no one path to take. There's no a highway road to go straight to the PGA Tour. There are bumps, there are detours, there are gravel paths that you might end up on, sometimes unintentionally. And you know what? It's however you kind of can steer yourself back on and spend some time on that highway to kind of make that progress.
Yeah, and you've had an unusual path that you didn't grow up as an AJGA All-American. Your parents brought you along a little slower, and you were successful at every level. And here you are, successful at the Korn Ferry level, just on the precipice of earning your PGA Tour card. So we'll look forward to seeing that. Thanks so much,
Coach.
Austin, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed all of it.